Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera bagi kita semua. Perkenalkan, saya Dea Silvani, dosen program studi Pendidikan Bahasa Inggris Fakultas Keguruan dan Ilmu Pendidikan Universitas Siliwangi. Saya adalah dosen pengampu mata kuliah Business English, English for Educators, serta MKU Bahasa Inggris yang ada di beberapa program studi di lingkungan Universitas Siliwangi, seperti di program studi pendidikan masyarakat, teknik sipil, teknik elektro, dan juga program studi akuntansi. Pada kesempatan ini, saya akan memaparkan pernyataan diri dosen dalam rangka unjuk kerja Tridharma Perguruan Tinggi, terutama di bidang pengajaran. Dalam kesempatan ini, saya akan menyajikan video pembelajaran dari mata kuliah Business English. Namun sebelumnya, izinkanlah saya untuk memaparkan aspek DIA atau Delivery, Interaction, dan juga Assessment dari mata kuliah Business English. Mata kuliah Business English merupakan salah satu mata kuliah yang menjadi perwujudan dari nilai-nilai kewirausahaan yang diusung oleh Universitas Siliwangi. Mata kuliah ini merupakan mata kuliah pilihan yang dapat diambil oleh mahasiswa program studi pendidikan bahasa Inggris mulai dari semester 4. Dengan bobot 3 SKS, tujuan mata kuliah ini adalah untuk memberikan gambaran kepada mahasiswa terkait penggunaan bahasa Inggris dalam komunikasi bisnis, baik secara tulisan maupun secara lisan. Namun dalam proses pembelajarannya, mahasiswa juga didorong untuk menguasai berbagai keterampilan praktis, seperti misalkan menyusun instrumen pengumpulan data analisis, melakukan wawancara dan observasi, menganalisis perusahaan, menuliskan laporan, menganalisis dan membuat sebuah iklan bisnis, serta untuk melakukan sebuah presentasi bisnis. Sehingga dalam proses pembelajarannya, mahasiswa dituntut untuk dapat berpartisipasi aktif dalam kegiatan diskusi, presentasi, maupun dalam proses penyelesaian tugas ataupun proyek. Menggali ide, mengekspresikan ide, mengajukan pertanyaan, menganalisis, mensintesis, dan mengevaluasi pendapat adalah serangkaian keterampilan berpikir analitis dan kritis aktif yang diharapkan dapat ditunjukkan oleh mahasiswa dalam mengikuti kegiatan perkuliahan di mata kuliah ini. Adapun untuk capaian pembelajaran mata kuliah Business English adalah menginternalisasi semangat kemandirian, kejuangan, dan kewirausahaan, menguasai strategi dan teknik tertentu untuk memahami informasi tertulis maupun lisan dalam konteks bisnis, mampu memelihara dan mengembangkan jaringan kerja baik itu dengan pembimbing, kolega, sejawat, baik di dalam maupun di luar lembaganya. Dan yang terakhir adalah mampu mengaplikasikan intercultural communicative competence dalam konteks bisnis. Selanjutnya, CPMK tersebut dikembangkan kembali menjadi beberapa sub-CPMK yang dijabarkan menjadi beberapa indikator pembelajaran yang perlu dikuasai oleh mahasiswa. Sekaitan dengan hal tersebut, materi pembelajaran yang dibahas pada mata kuliah ini meliputi Introduction to Business English, Business Branches, Business Process, SWOT Analysis on a Company, Business Advertisement, dan yang terakhir adalah Business Presentation. Selanjutnya, sistem pembelajaran yang dilakukan pada mata kuliah ini adalah blended learning dengan menggabungkan moda pembelajaran offline dan juga online. Pembelajaran secara luring dilakukan dengan kegiatan pembelajaran tatap muka di dalam kelas. Sementara, pembelajaran daring dilakukan baik secara sinkronus dengan bantuan Zoom Meeting maupun secara asinkronus dengan menggunakan media Google Classroom. Google Classroom juga digunakan sebagai media pengumpulan tugas dan juga untuk sharing materi supaya lebih mudah diakses oleh mahasiswa. Selain Zoom Meeting dan Google Classroom, saya juga menggunakan beberapa aplikasi untuk mendukung proses interaksi dengan mahasiswa. Di antaranya adalah Quizzes yang saya gunakan untuk mengukur aspek kognitif yang dimiliki oleh mahasiswa terkait dengan pemahaman mereka mengenai materi pembelajaran. Selain itu, saya juga menggunakan beberapa aplikasi seperti Padlet, Mentimeter, dan Idea Boards yang saya gunakan untuk kegiatan brainstorming atau untuk menggali prior knowledge yang dimiliki oleh mahasiswa terkait dengan topik pembelajaran yang akan dibahas. Dan yang terakhir, saya juga menggunakan WhatsApp group untuk penyampaian informasi dan juga untuk mempermudah proses komunikasi dengan mahasiswa. Selanjutnya, terkait dengan pendekatan dan metode pembelajaran, pendekatan yang dilakukan atau yang diterapkan pada mata kuliah ini adalah yang berbasis pada siswa dengan mengutamakan learning outcome. Sehingga hal tersebut diimplementasikan dalam kegiatan pembelajaran dengan menggunakan metode-metode pembelajaran seperti diskusi, presentasi, cooperative learning tipe jigsaw, dan juga project-based learning. Untuk bahan ajar yang saya gunakan dalam rangka mengoptimalkan proses pembelajaran, diantaranya berupa PowerPoint presentation slides yang memuat materi-materi pembelajaran, video-video dengan topik yang terkait dengan materi pembelajaran yang saya peroleh dari YouTube, serta berbagai artikel dan jurnal ilmiah terkini. Hal tersebut saya maksudkan supaya mahasiswa tetap terupdate mengenai isu-isu yang sedang hangat diperbincangkan dan sesuai dengan kebutuhan dan perkembangan zaman. Selanjutnya, saya juga menggunakan beberapa buku sumber. Berikut adalah daftar referensi yang saya gunakan, baik itu sebagai rujukan utama maupun pendukung pada mata kuliah Business English. Dan yang terakhir, terkait dengan assessment, untuk menilai hasil pembelajaran pada mata kuliah ini dilakukan dengan penilaian yang bersifat formatif dan juga penilaian yang bersifat sumatif. Untuk penilaian formatif, ada beberapa aspek yang dinilai. Yang pertama adalah aspek sikap dengan bobot 5%, di mana indikator yang dinilai berkaitan dengan sikap siswa yang ditunjukkan dalam kedisiplinan, tanggung jawab, toleran, dan juga santun. Selanjutnya adalah aspek keaktifan di kelas dengan bobot 10%, di mana akan dinilai bagaimana siswa menyimak pembelajaran di kelas, keaktifan bertanya di dalam kelas, serta respon siswa terhadap tugas yang diberikan. Dan yang selanjutnya ada juga kuis dengan bobot 5%, di mana kuis ini digunakan untuk mengevaluasi sejauh mana pemahaman mahasiswa terhadap materi yang sudah disampaikan. Yang selanjutnya, di penilaian formatif ada juga penilaian terkait dengan tugas dan proyek dengan bobot 40%. Di mana rubrik penilaian yang digunakan tergantung dengan skill ataupun keterampilan berbahasa yang dilibatkan dalam luaran dari tugas ataupun proyek. Kemudian untuk penilaian sumatif, dalam mata kuliah ini dilakukan melalui UTS dan UAS dengan bobot masing-masing 20%. Demikian pemaparan singkat terkait mata kuliah Business English. Selanjutnya, saya akan menampilkan sebuah video pembelajaran yang memuat aspek DIA atau delivery, interaction, dan juga assessment sesuai dengan RPS yang telah disusun. Selamat menyaksikan.
Oke, bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
All right. Good morning, everyone. How are you doing today?
Great.
Morning, ma'am.
I'm
Doing
good,
good.
ma'am.
Alhamdulillah. Okay, Alhamdulillah. Yeah, thank you so much for joining me in this meeting. Welcome back to Business English class. So for today's topic, it is about business presentation. But before we begin the lesson, I will inform you the learning objectives of today's meeting. So at the end of this meeting, you are expected to be able to comprehend the general concept of business presentation, identify the steps for structuring the business presentation, identify the communication strategies and useful phrases in business presentation, as well as apply the appropriate communication strategies and useful phrases in business presentation. Okay, to begin this lesson, I have a quick survey here for you. So I have a question here. How do you feel when you have to do a presentation? Okay, so I have already sent you the link to the Mentimeter. Okay, you can click that link. The question is, how do you feel when you have to do a presentation? And I want you to answer that question based on your own experience or based on your own feeling. All right, good. Yeah. So here we have some responses of you regarding your feeling when you have to do a presentation. I think it is quite normal for you if you feel nervous, yeah, because it is very normal thing for us. But in this meeting, we will discuss how to solve this problems, yeah, if I could say, because cold sweat, shake, trembling, relieved, afraid, okay? Maybe it is because you are less prepared to do the presentation. That's why in this meeting, we are going to discuss deeper about how to create or how to make an effective business presentation, okay? Thank you for your responses. And now let's get back to our materials. We will discuss several topics in this meeting. The first one is the introduction to business presentation. What is it about? What is actually a business presentation is? And then things to consider in the business presentation, as well as some tips for effective business presentation. And at the end, you will also have a quiz and also assignment to do, especially for the next week assignment, okay? Now let's move on to the first topic here. The first one is about the introduction. So I have a question here. What is business presentation? What do you think about business presentation? What is it?
In my opinion, the business
Okay.
presentation is a presentation when you want to promote or to so people will know your business.
Okay, good. Yeah, so basically it is just sharing information, maybe introducing something, but it is in a business context. Yeah, so as we can see here, it is basically a formal introduction. Yeah, it is commonly conducted in a formal way, of course. A formal introduction or information about new business products, ideas, or practices designed for either internal or external audiences. So it is basically a presentation by which you can share anything, you can share your product or services, you can inform the customers, maybe you may also attract the investor to invest in your business. Yeah, so there are different purposes of presentation, especially in business context. You can adjust the style of delivering the presentation based on the context itself. Okay, and here are some things to consider when you want to conduct a business presentation. The first one is you have to be able to structure a business presentation. Just like any kind of presentation, basically the presentation is divided into three main stages. The first one is introduction, by which you tell the audience what you are going to say. You introduce the topic of your presentation. And the next one is the main part, by which you just say it. Just like as you can see from the slide, just say it. Say what you want to deliver in the main part of your presentation, whether you want to attract your customers, whether you want to attract the investors, whether you want to report the status of your company, so on and so forth. Yeah, you just say it in the main part. And then the last one is closing, by which you tell the audience what you said. The first one, in introduction, you can do these four activities or these four communication strategies. The first one, you need to introduce who you are to the audience. You have to make sure that the audience know who you are and you are the perfect person to deliver the presentation. Okay, and the second one, you tell them what the talk is about. It means you have to introduce the topic of your business presentation. What do you want to deliver? Tell them. Okay, and then the next one, you also need to be able to tell why your presentation or why the topic of your presentation is relevant to the audience. And the last one is you need to tell how the talk is structured so that the audience will know what comes next. Okay, so that's what you can do in introduction. Okay, now I have several phrases here that you can do to start a presentation. The purpose of today's presentation is to discuss how we can blah, blah, blah. What is the purpose of this statement or of this phrase?
It's introduction, man.
Introduction. Introducing about what?
Introducing about how what is to be want to be present.
Okay, so you introduce the topic, yeah? Introducing the topic of the presentation. Okay, thank you, Wanfao. Now let's move on to the main part. So after introducing yourself, introducing the topic, and then lead the audience to the topic of your presentation, here comes the main part, by which in main part, you just need to give your best shot. Yeah, so there is an abbreviation here, best shot, by which B stands for briefly state your topic again. So the next one is explaining your objectives, signaling the beginning of each part, and then talk about your topic, signaling the end of each part, and then highlight the main point. Okay, so you can just highlight the main point of your presentation in this main part, as well as outlining the main idea in bullet point form. Yeah, it is very important for you to, to consider, because you won't have all day long to do the presentation. Maybe you have a very limited time, okay, to do the presentation. That's why you have to put the main ideas in the bullet point form, just to ease the audience to grasp the ideas or the information that you share with them. And also tell listeners you have reached the end of the main. And then while delivering the presentation, besides you have to consider the language that comes out of your mouth, you also have to consider the language which is expressed by your body. So it is important for you to mind your body language during the presentation. I have several questions here for you to answer, but let me just pick one of them. Just let's take a look at number 5 here. How we should keep eye contact with the audience. Is it A, make eye contact with each individual often? Or is it B, choose some individuals and look at them as often as possible? Or C, spread attention around the audience? Which one do you think is the best answer to the question about eye contact?
I think it's C.
Okay, Indah, tell it C. What about the others?
C, ma'am.
Okay,
C,
Ilham,
ma'am.
C also. Okay, great. Yeah, thank you. That's correct. Why we should spread the attention around the audience? Why we shouldn't only focus on someone maybe and look at them as often as possible? Why we should spread our attention to the audience?
I think it is to make sure that everybody feel heard and everybody is being paid attention to, like we are not choosing sides or anything.
Okay, yeah, just to make sure that all the participants engaged in your presentation and make sure that they have the same, you put the same attention to all the audience. Okay, great answer, Indah, thank you. Well, now let's move on to some tips of getting the audience's attention during the main part. The first one, you can ask them a rhetorical question, just like, do we really need quality assurance? Okay, so you just ask the audience such question. And then you can also start with interesting facts. So for example, according to an article that I read recently, central banks are now buying euros instead of dollars. Or you can present any specific facts which is related to your business field or to your business idea. And then the third one is telling the audience a story or anecdote. Yeah, I think a lot of people like telling story. So it is quite effective strategy to be implemented during the business presentation. Yeah, so for example, you can tell your experience, which of course related to the topic of your presentation, just to give them the real examples of what the issue will look like in the real life. And then the last one, you can give them problem to think. For example, suppose that you want to build a startup. How would you go about it? Yeah, just ask them a questions. Yeah, just to ensure that they can cognitively engaged in your presentation. Besides, during the presentations, it is also important for you to support your presentation by using some visual aids. Okay, whether you will present your presentation by using poster or by using PowerPoint slides, by using Canva, Prezi, so on and so forth, or you just want to show them some graphics, some illustrations, some charts. Yeah, it is important for you to use visuals during your presentation to support your delivery of information. Here are some checklists that you have to pay attention when you want to use or you want to prepare to use some visuals in your presentation. You have to prepare each visuals carefully and separately, of course, because you have to ensure that the visual that you show to the audience really shows what you are saying. Okay, so you have to be careful in showing the audience the slides, yeah. And then the next one, make sure your audience can read the visual. So be careful on choosing the font size and also the colors of your presentation. Too many colors, I think, will distract the attention of your audience, yeah. Or if you use too decorative fonts, yeah, it also affect their attention during your presentation. And also remember the rule of 6. Is there anyone who knows what is the rule of 6?
Is it the one that says we have to prepare only 6 slides of presentation?
Okay, great, Indah. You have a good memory. Yeah, we have already discussed it in the previous course, I think. Yeah, remember the rule of 6. So it is suggested that you can use 6 slides, and then each slides contain 6 points, and 6 points content of 6 sentences. Next one, I have several phrases again here that you can use to draw your attention, your audience attention to the graph or to the visuals that you show. Next one, it is the last stage of your presentation, which is about closing or conclusion. There are 5 communication strategies that you can use. The first one, you can signal the end of your talk, and then you can also summarize the key points of your talk, and then highlight one important point, and then explaining the significances of the topic again, yeah, and then make your final statement. Okay, in making your final statement here, there are several tips also to create an effective conclusion. You can use a question, and then quoting a well-known person. Yeah, to quote a well-known businessman, for example, blah, blah, blah. Or you can referring back to the beginning. So for example, at the beginning, you use, you tell the story to your audience. In the conclusion stage, you can refer back to the story that you have already told in the introduction section. Yeah, just to know that all the information that you deliver to your audience relevant to each other. And then the last one is calling the audience to action. So now it's your turn. Yeah, I have several phrases here related to closing or concluding the presentation. There are 4 main categories or 4 main purpose phrases. I want you to categorize them. Okay, which purpose does this phrase belongs to? The first one, thank you all for listening. Where should it go? Is it signaling the end of the presentation, summarizing, recommending, or inviting? Question.
Signaling the end of the presentation.
Great, Kania, thank you. What about B? In my opinion, we should blah, blah, blah. What is it?
Recommending or suggesting something?
Great, Indah, thank you. Great answer, thank you. I think you have already grasped, yeah, in general maybe, yeah, what the purposes of these phrases in concluding. So here are some tips, yeah, to wrap up. Here are some tips for effective business presentation. I have 9 tips here. The first one is you have to keep your presentation crisp, yeah, and then you can prepare some business appropriate jokes. Yeah, just to make your presentation become more enjoyable and fun. And then avoid using too many colors and fonts. Yeah, just because you have to keep it simple. Yeah, both the content and the design. Mind your look and appearance. I think it is quite important for you. You have to dress well, yeah, and then you can use some presentation tools and also software, just like what we have already discussed previously. And you can maintain your presentation style, whether you want to go formal, whether you want to go casual. Just make sure that you know the context, you know the audience, and you have to be consistent in maintaining your presentation style. And then you have to focus on your narration and also storytelling style if you choose that style to tell or to use in your presentation. And then you have to mind your body language, and then you can also ask some rhetorical questions. Okay, so that is the end of our discussion today. I have the assignment for you to prepare. So you have already made a business proposal before, and now you have to prepare for the business presentation next week. Therefore, here are some things that you need to consider. After the presentation, each group must compose the report of the presentation. Okay, you can submit your work to Google Classroom before the given deadline. So you can check your Google Classroom for the deadline. Okay, so any questions so far? Please.
Yes, before that, am I audible?
Yes, sure. Go ahead.
As we know, that presentation cannot be separate from speaking and body movement or body language. And sometimes when we presentation, we often present in a flat tone of voice and even without any body movements at all. My question is, what must be paid attention in terms of the speech and body language when we give a presentation? And is there any effect if we manage to manage to control the body language and the voice to the audience like that?
Okay, thank you. Great question, Dava. Very good question. Okay, so let's talk about voice first, yeah. Let's talk about our speech during the presentation. When we want to conduct a presentation or when we want to deliver a presentation, remember that the communication are two ways. It is two ways communication between you and the audience. It is not only you delivering the information, but the audience maybe sometimes also ask you questions. Yeah, so it is basically just like a daily conversation. And because it is a daily conversation, it is important for you to keep your speech rate in a normal, just like you communicate in your daily conversation. Okay, so if we referring back to that concept, sometimes when we want to highlight some important points, we may, raise our tone of speech just to emphasize the point that we want to highlight, for examples. Yeah, so I think it is important for you to rehearse yourself, and you know which point you need to emphasize by using the variation of pitch or the variation of raising your tone to highlight the important point, so that the audience know that that is the point that you want to highlight. That's the first thing about speech rate, okay, Dafa? And the next one, it is about body language. Okay, sometimes, yeah, maybe some people have different habits in their body language. Sometimes people cannot just stand stand quiet. Okay, they maybe make some unconscious movement during their presentation, for examples. Yeah, that's what you have to pay attention to. Again, you have to rehearse yourself. Maybe you can rehearse yourself in front of the mirror, and then because if you use too many movements in your presentation, it can distract your audience attention. For example, you go back and forth continuously during your presentation, you use too many hand movements during the presentation. Yeah, I think it can distract the audience attention. Okay, maybe you can watch some sources just like TED Talk, for examples. Yeah, it is, I think, very beneficial for you. It can be very fruitful for you to find some references about how a good public speaking is. Okay, Devak, is that answer your question?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. And now I think let's move to the next session. Let's have a quiz. Okay, I have a quiz here for you. Okay, so you can open the link joinmyquiz.com and use the code 492710. Think everyone's here? Okay, so let's start the quiz. All right, so to end this meeting, let's reflect to what we have already learned in this meeting. So I have several questions here for you to answer. So what did you get from today's meeting? Is there anyone who wants to share their ideas or share their answer to this question? What did you get from today's meeting, or what do we learn in today's meeting?
May I?
Okay, please, sure. Inda, sure,
Okay.
please.
Okay, so in today's meeting, we'll learn what is a business presentation and the general template of it, which is introduction, main part, and then closing. And then also we learn a lot of tips and tricks on doing a business presentation.
Okay, thank you, Inda. Thank you so much. Good. What will you do for the next week? Diana, what will you do for the next week project, Diana?
I think I will apply some tips that given before, such as body language, or tips, apply the tips for summarizing or concluding the material.
Okay, Okay, thank you, Diana. I think that's all that we can share in today's meeting. I believe that you have already understood about the main points of what we are discussing in today's meeting, and you can also use those materials to be your reference to prepare yourself for the next week project, which is about to do a business presentation. Yeah, so that's all for today's meeting. Thank you so much for your great participation in this meeting. Hopefully, you can get something useful for you. Not only in a classroom, but also you can apply it in the future. So good luck for your presentation. I think this is the end of our meeting. Thank you so much. See you next week. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Demikian video pernyataan diri dosen ini saya buat. Semoga bermanfaat. Mohon maaf atas segala kekurangan. Terima kasih atas perhatiannya. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.